So I just thought I would talk about the genesis of this book so we can understand where this strange thing came from. I did win a fellowship to move to Turkey in 2007. The Institute of Current World Affairs, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it sends people abroad, Americans, journalists, sometimes academics, all types of people, for 2 years to immerse themselves in a foreign country. I had no connections to any foreign countries. I didn't know anything about the world. I had not really been anywhere. I very much wanted to leave New York, and I was interested in many places, and I had been doing quite a lot of reading. I chose Turkey, though, for a reason that I was somewhat ashamed to admit. I don't even think I put it in my application. I chose Turkey because when I was 24 years old, I had been watching a PBS documentary on my favorite writer, James Baldwin, and at a certain point in the documentary, they showed him walking through, old Istanbul in the 60s, I think. And he said at one point that he had felt more comfortable as a black and gay man in Istanbul than he had felt in Paris or New York. And to a 24-year-old who hadn't been anywhere and didn't know very much and who was white, this did not make a whole lot of sense to me. I did not think that a place like Turkey, the way that I had imagined it, could possibly be more liberal or open-minded than Paris or New York, because of course I did not understand what it felt like to be black in the 40s and 50s. So this, thankfully, did kind of sort of open a space in the universe, in the sense that I thought to myself, well, what is this place, Turkey? What is this country? And I never could really quite get it out of my head. When I applied for the fellowship, though, of course, I was supposed to be applying to, go immerse myself in Turkish culture, to learn about Turkish politics. It was not supposed to be because I wanted to learn about an American writer. But what happened when I got there was that I realized, and I fell in love with Turkey and became very interested in every aspect of it. But what I found was that Baldwin had actually done these very interesting interviews with Turkish journalists. And he had started to observe, here it's the 1960s, that, as he said, he was seeing in Turkey, of course, this was, the years of after the Marshall Plan, the Truman Doctrine, after World War II, and he was seeing that the United States was starting to extend its power across the world, and he was very sort of afraid of this. It scared him a little bit because, as he argued, if we haven't solved our problems at home, primarily our race problem, then how can we spread, what values exactly are we spreading across the rest of the world and to the rest of the world? And I realized that there was could be a sort of intellectual guide for a book, because he could see this connection between America's foreign policy and its domestic problems. And so, about a year or so into the fellowship, I was telling these friends of mine all the time, about everything that I was learning about Turkey and all of my realizations and all of that. And I still at that point, though, thought I was going to become a real foreign correspondent and write a really serious book about Turkey, And at some point, these friends of mine pointed out that the more interesting things that I was saying actually were about America, and they said, if you ever want to write a book, we think your book is about America. And I was horrified. I was really, because this was the exact opposite of what this institute, this very generous institute, had sent me to do. I wasn't supposed to be writing about myself. I put aside that idea for a very long time. And soon enough, though, what I realized was that actually my Americanness, these prejudices, these biases that I wasn't even aware that I had, it was actually making it very hard for me to see Turkey on its own terms clearly, because I was constantly comparing the country and other foreign countries to the United States. I was constantly looking at everything through this sort of American exceptionalist lens of, doesn't everybody want to be like us, in some way. And I would never have admitted this. I would never have put this into words. But these were sort of my gut. They were my reflexes, and I think that it's in those reflexes that the American character really lies, and that was what I was trying to illustrate in this book, was sort of air a lot of these prejudices and biases, and so to figure out, how is it that we've been thinking about the world for the last 60 years, and that was what I tried to do with this book, and thank you so much for coming. Thank you.